Dame Mary, Chief Constable, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the Ulster University Belfast campus and to this event this evening. Can I just make some housekeeping announcements? We don't anticipate any fire drill this evening, so if the alarm does happen to sound, we would ask you to leave this room via this exit and also the entrance when you came in. We would ask you not to use the lifts, do not stop to collect personal belongings, and if you would exit the building to the assembly point in Cathedral Gardens, and on no account re-enter the building until the security staff tell you it's safe to do so. So thank you very much. And I also ask that any mobile phones, including checking my own, are set at vibrate or are switched off. The University is absolutely delighted to host this event this evening on global citizenship and youth empowerment, because this concept of global reach and empowering young people is at the very heart of what Ulster University stands for. Our vision is to enhance people's lives, and in all of the statements that we make, it's about seeking to make a very significant contribution to the economic, the social, the sporting, the cultural life, not only of the citizens who live here and live on this island, but much further afield. And that global reach is demonstrated by the fact that there are 160,000 graduates and alumni of the university spread right across the world, making that contribution in the communities where they are embedded. And in terms of our vision and in terms of our brand, we very much are in the business of shaping futures of our young people, shaping the futures of that wide range of people who come here to study, who go out into the communities. And in terms of the youth, you know that placement has been one of the brands of Ulster University for many years. And it is a great privilege to teach the young people. And I've often said that our young people go out, they come in here and do 2 years of study, and they go out in the third year as boys and girls, and they come back as men and women into their final year of study. And it's that practice-based application of academic study that is the real distinctive mark of this university. And today we were delighted that the university is in the top 100 under 50 years old universities. And that is a global benchmark of universities across the world that are under 50 years of age. We are in that top 100, and we were delighted with that. And that, in many respects, gives us an indication of not only the global reach, but the investment that is going on in our young people. And when you entered the campus this evening, when you look next door, we have the beginnings of our new campus, the first phase of the new Belfast campus, which will open in September of this year. And last week we announced the construction of the contract for the building of the second phase of the campus, that building to be undertaken by Lagans in a joint venture with the SOMAG, a Portuguese firm. And again, that demonstrates the global reach of the institution. And we're delighted that not only is the university shaping the futures of our young people, but we are making a major contribution in these difficult economic times to the construction industry. The building that you see rising, McLaughlin and Harvey, undertaking that construction, and now the Lagan Group in the new building, which will commence next month. And in 2018 we will have the new building opening, and we will have 15,000 people in this complex here, making a major transformation to the economic life of this part of the city. And not only does education have a transformative effect on the lives of our young people, we also do that in a way in which we seek to be inclusive. And inclusivity is one of the hallmarks of the university. Enabling those people who never think of going to a university, and in the surrounding area of North Belfast, there are many young people there that a university would be a foreign concept. And by working with the young people, by working in the primary and the secondary schools, those who have the ability, we want them to reach their potential. So tonight is about young people, it's about investment in young people, it's about engaging with them in a global context. And we're delighted that Conor Houston is presenting this public lecture. Conor is a solicitor in John J. Rice and Company. He has been active for a long period in Young Leaders Northern Ireland and the Northern Ireland Young Solicitors Association. And there, in that young influencer group, it is very much peer-to-peer, a driven network of young creators, innovators and influencers from across the province, reaching out into that global sphere and demonstrating the power of Northern Ireland in a very positive way. And what that group does is they work collaboratively as agents of change to influence and shape the future of this province by bringing to light the unique stories of people in and from Northern Ireland, respecting and indeed celebrating the diversity and challenging with absolute integrity those holding power in Northern Ireland. And in many respects that aligns with what the university is doing, because we want to be bold, we want to reach out and demonstrate that we can have a positive impact. And the Young Influencers Group has a vision that by 2030 Northern Ireland will be one of the greatest places in the world to create, to live, to work and to visit. Conor took part in the United States State Department Rule of Law Professional Exchange Program in Boston and Washington, and in January of this year was national leader of Team UK to the Ship for World Young Leaders Program hosted by the government of Japan. His experience in these two programs and the young influencers has led him to be passionate about youth empowerment and global citizenship. And that is why we in Ulster University are so delighted to host this lecture this evening. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite Conor to give his lecture entitled Global Citizenship and Youth Empowerment.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming this evening. There is a Chinese proverb which states that an invisible red thread connects those who are destined to meet, regardless of time, place, or circumstance. The thread may stretch or tangle, but it will never break. And as I look around me tonight, I see the evidence of that invisible red thread as so many people from my world of childhood and work and play are here tonight. It is a profound honour to stand before you this evening and address so many esteemed guests and people who have greatly influenced me. May I start by thanking Ulster for honouring me by inviting me to deliver this lecture. The commitment of this university and Professor Adair towards young people and the investment in our future are synonymous. And it's fitting, as Alistair has said, that this new centre of academic and creative excellence is literally rising up out of the ground, and I would say it's a perfect backdrop for tonight's lecture. I'd like to welcome everybody who has taken the time to come here this evening. I know some people have travelled quite some distance, and I'm very grateful for that. But in particular, I'd like to just welcome, I see the Chief Constables here, Dame Mary Peters, the President of the Law Society, Consul representative from the United States and from the Chinese Consul in Belfast as well, and to all the other distinguished guests who have taken the time to come here this evening. I'd like to welcome my friends and colleagues who are here, as well as the many young influencers who are in the room. Finally, I'd like to particularly welcome my family who are here tonight, my brother and sister, my parents and my heroes who are here tonight, and I should also wish them a very happy wedding anniversary. Not perhaps the most exciting way to spend your wedding anniversary, listen to your son lecture you. Not for the first time. So, why on earth am I, a solicitor, here to give a lecture on global citizenship and youth empowerment? Well, in order to explain, I need to tell you about the incredible thread of life which has brought me to this point. This evening, this lecture will be a personal journey and a personal experience reflecting on my own perspectives and sharing my ideas for this society. I was born in Holywood, County Down, and spent 10 years of my childhood growing up in Surrey, in England. I grew up within a diverse, tolerant and multicultural society, and also was proudly a part of the Irish diaspora in London. When I was 12, I vividly remember watching President Bill Clinton on TV, and he was turning on the Christmas tree lights in Belfast. We were at our home in West Byfleet in Surrey, and it was that very night that my dad told us that we would be moving home as a family. As I watched the images from Belfast and processed the news that my parents had just given us, I understood that something special was happening and felt excitement and hope. And I suppose the people of Northern Ireland that night did too. Now, of course, my naivety and total lack of comprehension for the situation back home did lead to a baptism of fire. I learned that Sinn Féin was not a place of which Gerry Adams was president. I learned that we wanted the Brits out, which was very concerning with my Polish Surrey accent. And much to my relief, I discovered that being dead on was not a threat to kill me. The former Chief Constable of the Royal Ulster Constabulary. The book closes with a quote by Theodore Roosevelt, which I will turn to later. The second book was from Dr. Kieran McKeown, The Passion of Peace, which tells of Kieran's enormous contribution to finding peace in this place. On the inside of the cover, Kieran wrote the following, which to this day has been a mantra for my life. May you dedicate yourself to the cause of how we as human beings might better relate. And so began the unending journey of finding my life's purpose. My life has given me so many incredible opportunities. A great education, getting my law degree, then my master's, and then qualifying as a solicitor. I became a lawyer out of a desire to help others and make a contribution to our society, and I am very proud of my achievements and successes. As a lawyer, I have represented clients to the highest courts in both the UK and Republic of Ireland, and I have had the honour of representing my profession internationally. It has also crystallised my values of integrity, professionalism, excellence, and the empowerment of others. Most of all, it has given me perspectives that no textbook can teach. To attempt to understand and truly relate to a person is a humbling experience, and I have had the honour and perhaps at times the struggle of doing this. The invisible red thread has brought some extraordinary people and circumstances into my world and helped me to try and find my purpose. One of the perspectives I've gained as a lawyer working in this city is the tale of two Northern Irelands. We speak of our two communities, and I do not intend tonight to dismiss the difficult tensions and complexities that remain from historic sectarian divisions. However, I am convinced that the real challenge facing our society today is how we bring the true realities of Northern Ireland in a way that we have not done before. The society, like the one that I have grown up in, one filled with opportunity, and the society in which opportunity is still, regrettably, severely lacking. I propose that one of the ways of dealing with this challenge, and the many others facing our society, is to empower our young people. And I believe one of the ways of bridging the gaps in our society to bring these two communities together would be to confront our box culture, the need to label people. Those first impressions that I had when I came back to Belfast at the age of 13 and the discomfort around having to be boxed and labelled as Catholic, Protestant, British, Irish, gay, straight, middle class, working class has always caused me unease. And the danger of boxing is that we tend to be able to reconcile treating the other differently to the us. And this is not just about them and us, or blatant hatred or discrimination. It can be much more subtle and pervasive, in a silo mindset of institutions or of fiefdoms. And whether it be blatant or pervasive, any attempt to label or box an individual group, in my opinion, stifles collaboration, synergy, innovation, vision, diversity, and creativity. And this, I would suggest, causes many of our young people to despair and, at worst, to give up hope. It causes many others to have their Philadelphia, here I come dilemma. In Brian Field's masterpiece, the inner torment of a young Irishman agonizing on the night before his immigration to America is forced to wrestle with the dilemma which still faces far too many of our young people, myself included. Should we stay or should we go? Now let me be very clear. In an international world, it is essential that young people from here have the freedom to fulfill their potential and to live and work in other countries in the world. In fact, our young people are representing Northern Ireland in incredible ways internationally. To pick on two inspiring women, my friend Nicola McCarthy works for Manchester City Football Club, travelling around the world promoting the team. Bernard Finnegan, a friend of mine, works hard for Brand NI in the Northern Ireland Bureau in Washington DC. And what we must ensure is, firstly, that our young people working and living internationally are proud ambassadors and advocates for Northern Ireland. Secondly, if they ever do wish to come home, the opportunity exists for them to do so. Finally, we must ensure that no young person should feel so frustrated that they simply leave, or they leave because we teach them that in order to succeed, they must leave Northern Ireland. Opportunities for our young people to seek new perspectives and opportunities must be celebrated. And I'm someone who has enjoyed such opportunities. Apologies for me and my shorts, that's probably a shock for most of you. And I've had the opportunity to participate in international exchange programs around Asia, Europe, America and Australia. And I've always loved being able to bring the world to visit my home here in Northern Ireland. One of the things I love most about travelling is the time you get to examine yourself and your world from a new perspective. And in this last year, I've been on an incredible journey, both here at home and around the world. And this journey has taught me that in order for our society to reach its potential, we must empower our young people to do three things. Create vision, connect the dots, and reimagine our society and our place in the world. So turning to the vision. In March last year, along with about 30 others, I received an invitation to come along to an event at the Titanic Pump House. We were brought together by Trevor Ringland, who's here this evening, Paul Smith, Joanne Stewart and Hugo McNeil. These four incredible individuals have played an enormous contribution to life moving forward in this society, and young people across Northern Ireland are indebted to them for the work that they have done, in particular when I come to tell you about the work they've done with the Young Influencer Group. And they brought together this group from a diversity of backgrounds who were recognised as having played a leadership role in their various disciplines. And that evening we were asked a simple question. If you guys are the future leaders of Northern Ireland, what do you want this place to look like? We all know what we don't like about Northern Ireland. It can sometimes be a bit more difficult to articulate what it is we want it to look like and what the solutions are. And thus began a conversation with 30 people, and now has over 800 taking part. Now we're a peer-to-peer driven network of young creators, innovators and influencers from across Northern Ireland. We include doctors, musicians, lawyers, actors, innovators, graphic designers, producers, social workers, social entrepreneurs, businessmen and women, politicians, computer scientists, students, those not in work, journalists and many more. And we are Young Influencers. Now, one of the mentors that I referred to, Hugo McNeil, who is chairman of the Ireland Funds and former British-Irish lion hero like Trevor, had hoped to join us here this evening. Hugo has been a passionate supporter and advocate and friend in Northern Ireland, and especially in the last year to myself and the Young Ulster Group. He has dedicated himself to empowering young people, and he asked me, he couldn't be here, but he did ask me if I would just pass on a very short message, and I didn't tell him I'd put a picture of him up whilst I do it. So Hugo, I have been very lucky over the years to see people from Northern Ireland at their very best, whether as students together, international rugby teammates, colleagues at work, or through the Ireland Funds and the British Irish Association, people working in public life and the community sector. A couple of years ago, we invited 2 graduates of the Ireland Fund's US mentorship program, Peter Aker and Anton McGonnell, both of whom are here tonight, to the British Irish Association conference in Cambridge. Many of the young influencers have heard me talk often of the impact they made. After a difficult afternoon session at the conference on the topic of flags, parades and dealing with the past, they brought a new life and enthusiasm to the discussion. They wanted to work with their peers from Northern Ireland to make Belfast the digital capital of Europe, or to develop new ideas for work and the community in tandem with the new friends they had made. Their energy made a huge impression on the conference, and so we decided to build on that. If 2 people can make this impact, why not get many more involved? And so it started, and so it grew. The network has enormous potential. It has been a real buzz to see it grow. I am desperately sorry not to be able to be there with you tonight. Last October I received an invitation from Trinity University to speak at an alumni event in London tonight. However, I look forward to being back up soon to see the continuous momentum in action. So, what do young influencers do? I'm really hoping this video will work to show you. Hashtag Grow Good Build New. It's the most exciting, dynamic, inspiring and innovative group of people I've ever met. And what keeps us together is that, and what is making us grow is that we have a vision. We're about solutions and we're about positive ideas. Despite our diversity, our vision keeps us together. And we're working on a number of exciting projects as we look forward to building the new. My time with this exceptional network of people has been one of the great honours of my life, and I have made so many friends. It has taught me that from diversity, from this energy, what we need in our society is a common set of inclusive values and vision. And from this, creativity, innovation, ideas and new beauties can be born and imagined. We can find new ways of relating to each other, to government, to business, and to the world, and from this create opportunity and upward social mobility for us all. Grow good, build new. So, with this vision, we then need to connect the dots. Thanks to the many incredible exchange programs, such as the Washington Island program, US Mentorship program, many of our young people have had the opportunity to gain new perspectives and to bring back and transform our society. Thanks to the US State Department Rule of Law program, I had the opportunity to travel to the US, to Boston and Washington for 6 weeks last year. I should thank the Deputy Consul who's here this evening, Gabrielle Mosley, who sat very wisely on the interview panel and selected me to go. Well done. It was an incredible tour de force of a rule of law in city, state and federal level. We met politicians, policymakers, academics, city managers, mayors, senators, congressmen, lawyers, police officers, prison officers, judges, diplomats, ambassadors, business and civic leaders, and many others. This opportunity and the value of these programs cannot be overstated, and I trust and hope they will continue. And the best part of this particular program we were on is that there was a return leg. And I am delighted that here in the audience this evening are the people in this picture who have joined us this evening from Boston, and they've been in Dublin last week and Belfast this week on the return leg, and it's been an honour and a privilege to have them here. And we've had a very intense but very enjoyable week, and you can see they've been meeting lots of interesting people whilst they've been here in Northern Ireland. When I was in Boston, I spent a couple of weeks with Nancy Schlachter, who's sitting here near the front, who was my wonderful host in the city of Cambridge. And I was given a macro level view of how this wealthy, dynamic and prosperous city works. Now, believe it or not, one of the wealthiest cities in the United States had a flag problem. Mayor David Maher, a proud Irish American, had taken over office from an Italian American and decided to replace the Italian flag with the Irish one. Now, there wasn't quite a riot, but I'm told that there was severe anger and frustration, which led to the mayor hosting an Italian day at City Hall to try and mend bridges, and I was delighted to go and join in the Italian celebrations with him. So it just shows you flags can be a problem in all cities. I met with the city manager, Richard Rossi, who told me that a successful city was simple. You just had to do three things and connect them together. Have a highly educated workforce who are directly connected with the local business economy. Secondly, have a world-class hospitality and tourism sector. It must be a welcoming place to visit. And thirdly, it must be a welcoming and cosmopolitan place to live. And having met with Suzanne Wiley, the Chief Executive of Belfast City Council, and her fantastic and passionate team, some of whom are here tonight, and I want to acknowledge Caroline Wilson, Nicola Lane, Francis Murray and Laura Leonard, I know that this vision is shared for the future of our city, but we all have work to do to make sure that vision is realised. I also met, when I was in Cambridge, with the Chief of Police, Bob Haas, who was working to connect with social services and envisages one day that his police service will stand behind what he calls the front line of mental health, health and social services. I spent time with the inspirational and visionary Ronnie Miller, who's originally from Antrim, who runs the Irish International Immigrant Centre, who not only provide legal protection and advice to immigrants, but have also connected that advice to ensure that immigrants receive education provision and wellbeing provision, reimagining how we treat our immigrants. I went to Harvard and MIT and also met with many of the biotech and life science companies in Kendall Square. These universities are developing studies based on the future needs of the businesses in Kendall Square. They are inextricably linked. What this experience taught me is that all the good stuff is already here. We just need to believe in ourselves more. We have everything we need here in this city to become, dare I say, the Hong Kong of Europe. That could be Belfast Lock one day. You're laughing, but we could be. We have had our two like Cambridge, we have our two world-leading universities at either end of the city. We have our innovation capital in the form of the Science Park, and we have our unique history and ability to tell the world our incredible and transformative story. Best of all, we have our people. The invisible red thread connected so many people within the last year within that Young Influencer network. And it is our young people connecting in new and innovative ways that ensures that vision, as we discussed earlier, becomes a reality. And with our vision and with our connectivity, we can then reimagine our world and our role within it to build the new. We all understand that we live in an international era, that what happens in Syria has an impact on us all. Northern Ireland is doing business for the world. International companies are based here, and our people are competing globally for work. Boundaries and nationalities are transformed in our ever internationalised world, and I suggest that what we must have the confidence to do is to reimagine our local and international identity as citizens. To reflect personally, I suppose I've been doing that my whole life. Having grown up in England with an Irish background, I have always had to reconcile my identity when living in Northern Ireland. I want to tell a personal story about my best friend. One of my best friends, we'll call him Petal. It's a long story why he's called Petal. But he is a soldier in the British Army. And in December 2008, I had, by coincidence, been invited to Dublin to take part in an Island of the Future seminar series hosted by the then President Mary McAleese. And the very next day, I flew from Dublin to Sandhurst to stand proudly and watch Petal pass out as an officer in the British Army. I stood next to him on his wedding day, and I hugged him as he went to Afghanistan in 2010. On the day he left for Afghanistan, I handed him a letter with a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. And this quote had inspired me when I was 18 years of age, as it had been in the book that Sir John Herman had given me. In fact, it's on the final page of his book. And it's known as the man in the arena quote from Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. On Christmas Day that very year, Petal sent me a photograph from Afghanistan of his battalion, and all of them were wearing a t-shirt which had that quote on it. A US president to an IUC chief constable to a young Irish lawyer to a battalion of the British Army serving in Afghanistan. I think that truly is an invisible red thread, reimagining globally with who and how we relate. This month last year, I was invited to London as part of President Higgins' delegation for the historic first state visit of an Irish president to the United Kingdom. The shadow and shelter of my childhood and adulthood were entwined, and I consider it one of the greatest honours that Petal stood next to me as part of the visit. Not as British or Irish, not as Catholic as Protestant, but as friends united in our belief that the relationship between these islands and our peoples can be reimagined. Now, in January of this year, I had the honour of being national leader, UK national leader, to the Ship for World Young Leaders programme hosted by the government of Japan. Team UK was a diverse group of 10 people from England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. And I was delighted that Team UK had 3 people from Northern Ireland. Ollie Donnelly, who is a politics student at Trinity College Dublin, and Aaron Gordon, who's here tonight somewhere. He's hiding at the back. And Aaron was actually selected also to be Assistant National Leader. So we were kind of like the First and Deputy First Minister on tour. We'll leave that analogy, I think, there. But if I could just say, Aaron was not just a great leader in the sense that he was able to build incredible links and teamwork with our group for Team UK, but everybody on the ship knew Aaron, and he was able to bring the best out of everybody that took part in that programme. He wasn't just an absolute pillar of support, he was also one of the greatest friends that I could have asked for, and it's very special that we have a lifelong friendship as a result of this programme together. And there's actually a nice picture of me and Aaron in a karaoke bar in Tokyo. This was the only night we had that we were allowed out, so of course we ended up in a karaoke bar. And the invisible red thread played its part in how we got there, because Paul Smith, who one of the mentors of Young Influencers, posted the opportunity on our Facebook page, and I thought, well, that looks interesting. A month in Japan certainly appealed to me. And then the wonderful Caroline Wilson from Belfast City Council, who is a former SWIRE participant, had suggested that I should definitely apply, and I think definitely put in a good word for me. And then Hugo McNeil and Dennis Maloney, who you'll hear from later, supported my application. So the thread helped to bring me to Japan. And I applied to be the national leader of Team UK for 2 reasons. Firstly, I wanted to demonstrate that young people in Northern Ireland could play a leadership role on the national and international stage. It was important that people in Northern Ireland believe that they can play a role, and also that my fellow delegates from other regions of the UK recognise the unique and leading role that we can play on the national stage. Secondly, as a proud Irishman, I wanted to challenge the box culture. Whatever our future constitutional position, I believe we should be using our unique position as part of the UK and all island structures to empower our young people to create influence, opportunities and prosperity. We must always be prepared to challenge and, where necessary, reimagine our identity. The ability to embrace change is how we grow. And Young Influences are an example of somebody that's doing it already. The diversity of its members and the creation of space to debate complex and challenging issues shows how we can reimagine this. Imagine by 2030, not just with the Hong Kong of Europe, but the Prime Minister of the UK and the Taoiseach of Ireland could both come from Northern Ireland. It is possible. So as part of our preparations for Japan, I brought Team UK to Belfast, and it was the first time that the English, Scottish, Welsh delegates had ever come to Northern Ireland. And I did exactly what I intended to do, which was to transform their preconception of this place. And I was able to showcase a positive, vibrant narrative of our country. And this was due to the phenomenal generosity and support of individuals and organisations who understand giving opportunity to our young people and looking out to the world is how our society will transform and grow. Can I just say, we weren't arrested or anything. Superintendent Hillman, who's here tonight, very kindly hosted and gave a tour, and we went into the command room. We got to see into Aaron's mother's living room with one of the CCTV cameras practically. So yeah, thanks for hosting as well. And these are all the organisations, and you can see they're quite a diverse bunch, but all of them leapt to help Team UK. Howard Hastings put us up in the Sleep Donald, and City Council were just wonderful hosts. Titanic Belfast gave us a tour. Paula hosted the police service. Northern Ireland Connections put on a dinner, and the Law Society hosted lunch. Visit Belfast gave us visitor packs, and then the Chamber of Commerce and Suki Tea, I'll come to in a second, because they gave us a number of gifts to bring to Japan. So I was able to showcase, during our orientation weekend, we discussed what it meant to be part of the UK and identity, a conversation which continued throughout the programme. We decided we would have a theme for Team UK, and we wanted one that reflected the diversity of culture, religion and people that make up the UK. And we decided on a theme of a blossoming blend. The blend representing the diversity, and this blend would blossom best together, as well as making reference to tea and the Japanese cherry blossom. So this was the logo, and we kind of, Trevor he is going to say this is the British Irish Lions logo. It's very much modelled on that logo, but we did one slight amendment whereby we tailored the shamrock so it was in the shape of the Giant's Causeway, which I imagine probably caused offence to all sides of the community rather than none. Finally, we needed an official gift for our dignitaries. So we chose tea, representing the passion of both the UK and Japan, and also in keeping with that theme, blossoming blend. But not just any tea, we chose Suki Tea, a Belfast-owned company. And Suki Tea actually gave the G8 world leaders a Suki teapot, when they came here for the G8. So I went to meet Oscar Woolley and told him what we were doing, and he was so excited at the opportunity. He spent 2 hours that very evening creating a special brew of tea for Team UK called a Blossoming Blend, and I have some of the very last packets of it that we got back from Japan here with me. I felt like I was smuggling something in Japan. It's a full suitcase of these. So the Northern Ireland Chamber of Commerce sponsored our jackets with those emblems on, and Invest NI and the British Council also gave us a number of gifts. So we were ready then for a life-changing experience, and in January we flew off to Tokyo. So that's Oscar with the tea. So that was us with our gifts ready to go, and that's Team UK, and you can see we have blazers with the emblems on. The programme is also known as SWI, which is Ship for World Youth, and it was known as SWI 27 because it's the 27th year of the programme. And basically what the programme entails is the Japanese government select 10 countries from around the globe, and they asked each of those countries to send 10 delegates to Japan, so that's 100 people internationally, and then there's 100 young Japanese people selected, so there's 200 altogether, and we then pursue an international leadership and cultural exchange program, which includes a 3-week cruise around Japan, the private cruise ship, which was really tough, as you can imagine. The summit included time in Tokyo, where we met with the Prime Minister and the Crown Prince. We also had a homestay with a family in Miyazaki, which is in a rural part of Japan. I also had my first experience of a hot spring, which we'll not go into in a public lecture, but it was interesting. We met with a number of local school children, and we attended a leadership course at the United Nations University in Tokyo. And then, as I say, we set sailed on the Nippon Maru cruise ship on a tour of Japan. Now, I thought what would be easy is I could talk for the rest of the night about the experience in Japan. I know Caroline, having been on it a couple of years before, could do the same. It's impossible to sum up the incredible experience that we had, and the number of stories every day was just filled with people and stories and experience. But what I thought would be good is if I just told sort of 3, maybe short, and there will be short stories, that I think just capture the essence of what the programme was about. Now, as part of our itinerary, we sailed to the city in the very north of Japan, in the Iwate prefecture, to visit an area that was devastated by the March 2011 Great Eastern Japan earthquake. In 1 hour, an entire city was literally swept away by the tsunami, and this is a picture to try and give you an idea. That used to be just like any city you would have here, any town you would have here, and it just literally was washed out to sea. People lost everything, their businesses, their homes and their families, and what was incredible when we visited there was that anything or anyone had survived at all. We were taken to meet a local community group, and they were living in temporary housing, which are effectively like the old prefabs that they used to have at my school. They'd been there for 4 years, and when they arrived they had nothing, literally nothing. Many of them didn't even know if their family members had survived. And yet, out of that utter destruction and hurt and pain, they have built a community. They organise events, and we shared an afternoon of making rice cakes, which is incredibly hard work, let me tell you. We then ended up singing and dancing and just having good crack. These people lost everything, but they proved that the power of the human spirit in the face of adversity to survive shows that hope really does spring eternal. And on the 4th anniversary this year, on the 11th of March of the earthquake, all the delegates of the SY27, all 200 of us, made a YouTube video which you can search and find. I'll not play because it's quite long, sending messages of support to the people we had met. This was, if you like, global citizenship in action. 5 continents of young people sent a video to one small town on the north coast of Japan to show we were united in solidarity with our fellow human beings. It was incredibly humbling. And on the ship we had late night discussions about politics, life, religion and love. We laughed, we cried, we debated, we sang, we danced, we challenged, we loved. Each country had to make a national presentation, which included music, song, dance, literature and history. And it was a wonderful display of the rich culture and peoples of our planet. And Team UK included nationalists, multi-ethnic and multi-faith members. So our presentation, like our theme, was built around the blend of diversity that is the UK. We managed to encompass Shakespeare, Dylan Thomas, Macbeth, Michael D. Higgins and of course One Direction. For one night only, I was Harry Styles. I'm not going to do it tonight, don't worry. When my friend Aaron, who's here tonight, sang a mesmerising rendition, he's an incredible singer by the way, sang a mesmerising rendition of The Fields of Athenry, there wasn't a dry eye in the house or on the ship. And something beautiful happened. Team UK, the rest of us were standing along the back of the stage, and unscripted, we all joined hands and stood silently in solidarity. This blend of Muslims, Welsh, Christians, English, students, professionals, gay, straight, British, immigrant, Irish, stood united not only in respecting, but actually celebrating the nationalism that exists within the UK. On the final night, each country swapped national dress, and for one night we were transformed. Kenyans were Omani, the Kiwis were Brazilian. The participants became my friends, my family, and are now part of my world. Above our national identity, we found a common bond of humanity. And we had many meetings to discuss how we can cooperate better internationally. And it's simple. Being a global citizen is the way in which this can be achieved. We can, of course, still have strong national local identity, religious or political views, but in the 21st century, we have a responsibility to reimagine our identity to include a global perspective. Evidence of this is that many countries that were around the table in Japan had never heard of Northern Ireland. Some knew of it because of the conflict, but actually, and probably a very positive message, more of them knew of Northern Ireland because of Rory McIlroy, which I think is a good thing, that is now brand NI. And you see, if we want to play our role on either a national or international stage, then we have to think global. Rory has become the best golfer in the world, not because of his identity, but because he wanted to be global in his success. He wanted to be number one in the world. And that's the way we've got to start thinking. And the invisible red thread appeared during a lecture on youth contribution in society. Aaron and I shared our experience in the Young Influencer Group and our Vision 2030. Bahrain, Kenya, Sri Lanka and New Zealand, during their presentations, revealed that they were all working on similar strategies also around Vision 2030. And the other countries that were taking part had ideas which would complement that vision. And so it was agreed that we would work together across the 5 continents around a Vision 2030. Yes, some of the projects at Young Influencers that you saw earlier are unique to Northern Ireland. But our vision and our purpose and what we're doing is global. It's reimagining our role within the world, which will ensure that Northern Ireland is a global leader. Now, many of you may have thought I had gone stark mad earlier as you saw me tying the red string along the railing on the side of the room. And there are little clothes pegs on it as well. And what we would quite like you to do, there's paper and pens dispersed around the room. Some of you may have been doodling as I've been meandering here. But what we'd actually like you to do, and we do this at a number of our Young Influencer meetings, is we just would like you, if you would like to write down what your vision of Northern Ireland 2030 is. And we're going to put them on this and we'll collect them and we'll sort of collate them and keep it anonymous, don't need to put your name on it. Peter, Edgar and myself met with a group of 16-year-olds yesterday who were up as part of the Department of Foreign Affairs Ivy Scholars Programme. And we asked them to do that, and it was really quite humbling to hear how energetic and positive 16-year-olds were about the future of this island. So I would really ask you if you could just, at some point between now and leaving, if you could just write down me one idea, one vision, and we'll collect them on the invisible red thread. You see, there is a theme here. So yi is the Japanese word for working together in mutual cooperation and mutual respect. It is the founding stone of Japanese culture and in their relations with one another. Yi means, what's the word there? You must always seek to understand the other's perspective. You must always seek to understand the other's perspective. And I believe this is a concept that we should consider urgently importing into our own culture. It reminds me also of the vision and reimagining of our police force. And I had the pleasure on Monday of spending time with the Rule of Law delegation, with the Chief Constable and Assistant Chief Constable. And I think that if you want to see that perspective in terms of understanding the other's perspective, in terms of vision, in terms of connecting the dots, then we don't have to look a lot further. And I do thank you for making us so welcome on Monday, Chief Constable. Yi is also about solidarity, asking the question, how can I assist? Even if you fundamentally oppose or disagree with someone, there is an acceptance that you should support and assist people when they need it. Now you can imagine, with 200 people from 5 continents on a ship, cabin fever is a very real reality. And there are going to be fundamental issues, just like there are on our planet, upon which cultural, historical, and religious differences will emerge, many of which will be diametrically opposed. I want to just pick on one example to highlight this and what I learned from it. During their national presentation, Team New Zealand had a theme of the advancement of social causes, and they celebrated that they were the first country in the world to allow women to vote. They also highlighted their recent decision to legalise gay marriage, and many of the delegates on the ship held strong religious convictions, both Christian and Muslim. In some of the countries that were represented, the issue of sexuality is just not spoken of, never mind debated. And that evening, some individual delegates from some of the countries were discussing delicately the presentation by New Zealand, and admitted that they found it very difficult to even discuss the matter. And when I revealed my own sexuality to them, many were stunned into silence. It was like being 17 again, the turmoil and torment of coming to terms with your sexuality in a society or an atmosphere which then, and at times now, does not appear to tolerate, never mind celebrate your identity, can be very difficult. But what happened next was the ability of some of the delegates to reevaluate and reimagine their previously held ideas and misconceptions. As one of the Kenyans said, "But you're cool." For others, they stated that their religious beliefs were fundamental to them, but that they respected me. But one delegate in particular made no secret of his deeply held religious conviction. But we didn't fall out. We didn't get into a them and us. Instead, we found a respect for each other and developed a very strong friendship. We found that we had many passions and interests in common, and we worked on a number of issues on the programme together. We had dinner together many evenings, and on one evening in particular, he asked me if I would join him in Friday prayer in the prayer room which was on our ship. And I joined him and many of the other Muslim delegates for their Friday prayer. It was a great honour to be asked to join them. As an amusing aside, as we arrived in the prayer room, there was complete and utter confusion as to whether we were sailing east or west so they could find the direction of prayer, but thankfully, because of an iPhone, we were able to resolve that. And as we were leaving after the Friday prayers, my friend from Bahrain walked down the corridor with me, and he stopped me and he turned to me and said, "Conor, you are my brother." And I think that really just sums up what that experience was on a personal and indeed on a global level for me. The ship became my home, my world, and was a place of incredible diversity, and demonstrated that difference is something to be celebrated. It made me reimagine how we as human beings might better relate. I am convinced that the spirit of E would assist us all to better understand each other, even when we fundamentally disagree. Our common humanity is greater than anything which might ever divide us. I have been on an incredible journey, and my friend Aaron said to me as we flew back to Belfast, "The world is round, and a place which seems like the end may be only the beginning." The red thread has only just begun. By empowering our young people, we can create vision, we can connect the dots, and we can reimagine our society and our role within the world. Our young people are the global thinkers, shapers, influencers, and active citizens who can make a global impact and realise the infinite beauty and potential of our world. I believe that Nelson Mandela's call to action sums up the responsibility on us all. Sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that great generation. Let your greatness blossom. Thank you very much.
Conor, thank you for a truly inspirational lecture. There is time for a few questions if anyone wants to ask a question from Conor. While the audience is thinking, Conor, you've challenged us this evening. You have a vast range of global experience. You've seen how these activities that you've been engaged in bring people together. They bring them to a common understanding of humanity and partnership. And my question to you would be, what is the one thing you would want to see in Northern Ireland in 2030 that you think would progress the society?
Very good question. I've asked you all to do it, and Ulster has now asked me to give my answer. I suppose I would answer it that it's not really about what I would want Ulster. I told you to speak I gave this answer at a conference before, and I said, well, for me it's quite simple, because if there's 3 women, and if Northern Ireland works for them in 2030, then it works for me. And the first is my mother, because she's the lady who brought me into this world. And by 2030, my mother's a very young lady. She's sitting here at the front, so very careful I say. But she'll be slightly older then, and I want her to have dignity in her older age, and I want her to relax and be able to know that her children are growing up and her grandchildren grow up in a prosperous and safe environment. I don't want to have any worries or fears. Second woman is one I referred to earlier, one of my friends who lives in Manchester. I want her to have the ability that in her lifetime, if she wants to come back to live in Northern Ireland, that she could, and she could bring her family back here, and they would have the same quality of life they can have, and tolerance and all the things that go with it, all the things that I referred to when I saw in Cambridge, that they would exist here, that if she wants to come home, that she could by 2030. And I suppose the third, and I actually better split this, when I first told this I had 1 goddaughter, I now have 2, and I think the father of one of those goddaughters at the back, so I better be careful not to pick one of them, but so I suppose my 2 goddaughters, by 2030 they'll be in their late teens, and I want to make sure that by then they'll have access to world-class education, to the best universities, and this university and the Queen's University are already regarded as world-leading universities, and that trend would continue, and that every opportunity in terms of employment and innovation, anything they want to do with themselves, would be available right here for them. So I suppose that's what I want Northern Ireland to look like by 2030 through the eyes of those people.
Thank you. Any comments or questions to the audience?
I stunned them.
Conor, what was your most difficult experience in your recent trip?
That's a good question. I suppose when I think of Japan, because I was in a position of responsibility for my team, I worried about them. So I wanted to make sure they were enjoying themselves and they were safe and that they were well. And that, I suppose, was the great difficulty, was just making sure that my team were happy and well, that they were enjoying these. But I mean, I have to say, the Americans, we were treated like royalty. The Japanese government treated us so well, so we didn't have many difficulties in that sense. We were very well looked after. Is there any other questions?
Conor, I was just wondering, do you get the opportunity to present like this to the schools, colleges, the young people right across the province? Tell them what you're doing?
No, but I'd be very happy to do so. And I know there's a headmaster sitting in the middle here from Dundonald who I'm available to come up to Dundonald anytime. So that's why you're here. I mean, there's a responsibility. That's why I'm so grateful to Alistair for asking me to come here tonight, because I think it's so important I'm so lucky to have had these opportunities, and I think it's just so important that you don't just then come back and keep them to yourself, but that you actually stand up and you tell people about it. So thank you for coming and listening to me tonight. And just one thing stuck with you, well then, that's been a success as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, I'm very happy to go out and tell this message and tell this story to you, but listen to me. I'm a lawyer, I like to talk.
I was trying to start something about that question, I guess. How your short interview on Channel 4 last week, would you like to make the sentiment of what you said for your engagement who's disengaged here?
Firstly, I have to tell a secret. I was out with a couple of friends who might be in this room, I'll not name names, and Channel 4 News decided that they would buy you a beer as long as you would do an interview. Not that I would be partial to a bribe, but we partook in the offer, and we were asked for our opinion on, as young people, what did you think about the elections? And really my point was quite simple, and I suppose you can probably get a sense of it from the election. It's the reconnection of our young people and their ideas and their energy and where they are at now, today, and where our politicians are at. And I think that can see that in a number of the issues that are out there at the minute, the frustration between young people and politicians, and that tension's there. And what we need to do is, rather than fight with them and create those, we need to find ways of bringing our politicians with us, and that's why what we're trying to, with Young Institute, we're trying to find ways to influence and work with and to support our politicians, because a lot of them actually need support in order to bring about change and to convince their own communities that these changes are in everybody's benefit, for everybody's good.
On that note, would you like to share what young influencers are doing on May 5th?
On
May 5th?
Oh, and I actually, I don't mean to pick, but maybe Kira or Conor, these ladies are really spearheading it, so if you don't mind, maybe you would like to?
No problem. On May 5th, young influencers are having a social media conversation prior to, so on May the 5th, young influencers are actually having a social media conversation on Twitter and on Facebook, and we're using a hashtag called Why I Vote in preparations for the general elections next Thursday. And what we want everybody to do is basically ping us their reasons about why they vote or why they don't vote, or what they want to see Northern Ireland and to be like in the next kind of 4 and 5 years as we go through the next Westminster term, and then of course into the next Assembly term. So if you're talking to anybody, try and get them involved in using that hashtag next Tuesday night, and we just want to hear lots of young voices, and social media seems to be the way to do it.
Thank you. And thank you for all your support for not just young infants, but for all young people in Northern Ireland, and the Consulate have been doing some great work and supporting so many projects. And on a personal level, yourself and obviously the Consul General Greg Burton, who wanted to be here tonight, are both leaving, so it's a double blow for the people of Northern Ireland. But your contribution has just been enormous, and I've said this to you already this week, but just to say in front of this audience, thank you very much for everything the United States government is doing in Northern Ireland. We hope you'll continue to do that. As I say, it's going to be a big loss us not having yourself and Greg here, but we'll look forward to making your successes as welcome as I hope we've made you. So thanks again.
I think we have time for one last comment or question.
Conor, that was excellent, very inspiring today. I've just come out of community development at University of Ulster. I've gone back after 20 years and going to sit through the whole thing and do my degree in community development, but having a really good day. And I just thought, your thoughts, I've always thought about Belfast and I've always been very proud of it, but I also know it's not marketed and we are not hitting across. I mean, my parents are in Hong Kong, and I see global cities and everything, but just an idea, could you not lock away about 100 of us minority ethnic, I hate to call myself minority ethnic people, away in a room with 100 local people and see how we work to be the global city of Belfast? Looking around, I know there's Magic, there's myself, there's a few of us, again, we're the minority, but we're wasting an opportunity here in Northern Ireland. We have the diverse communities, we have the richness, and we also have the local community as well, and our second, third, fourth generations. There's a lot in it, and there's a lot that the brand of Belfast and Northern Ireland could bring.
I absolutely agree with you, Eileen, and I think that one of the things obviously I touched upon, and that's really the vision, and I think it's about connecting, and we have been working, the Young Institute Group is really sort of up and running probably now about 6 to 9 months, and we have been connecting with we don't select, but it's we welcome everybody, and there have been people from many backgrounds and other ethnic minorities, other religions coming and getting involved, and we welcome, and I think that's really important, and I really like the idea that you're suggesting. It's that idea of connecting people and then reimagining how we relate with one, because like that ship, when you put 200 people from all these diverse backgrounds who on the paper will just clash on every issue, but when you actually live and work and communicate and have those relationships and work through these issues together, if we were like a family by the end of that program. We were a family by the end of that program. Sorry. I will work with you on anything, Eileen, as you know.
Conor, thank you again. There will be an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, following the lecture to have further discussions with Conor, so thank you very much, Conor.
Now, just 1 second, Conor, just stand where you are, son. Before we go, Conor, in his selfless manner, managed to leave out one fact about himself, and that's that he planned this lecture on his birthday. So we've got him a lovely cake made. There's a bit for all of you. If you liked it, it's from Boyle's Bakery on Castle Street, and if you didn't, it's from Asher's. So join me in singing Happy Birthday to Conor. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Conor. Happy birthday to you.
Isn't that a wonderful piece of improvisation? Spontaneity. So,
Yes, thank you very much.
ladies and gentlemen, before we finish, tonight we've had a powerful demonstration of global citizenship and empowering our young people. And I think that is the common thread that runs right throughout this audience, that we want to see our young people prosper, we want to give them the skills, and as we give them the skills, as we empower them to prosper, we build peace. And one of the people who works very closely with the university, particularly in the communities around Belfast, but in these very hard to reach communities, that person now is going to come and propose the vote of thanks. So, Professor Dennis Maloney, can I invite you to propose the vote of thanks?
Honoured guests of the university, could I just say a number of very brief matters. At the end of a very hectic day, at the end of a very hectic week, I think we all have and a very interesting and probably very succinct lecture from Conor. I have no intentions of detaining you for too long, but and especially as one who had the great privilege of teaching Conor advanced advocacy from the Notre Dame School of Trial Advocacy, where you are taught to be short and to the point. I think a number of short points have to be made this evening. First of all, to my very good friend, the Acting Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Alistair Adair. Thank you, Alistair, for hosting this evening. And I think that for those of you who don't know, this whole concept of the University of Ulster and the York Street campus is Alistair Adair's baby. And I think that that baby, which is gestating at the present stage, and as you see it shooting up all around you, will come to fruition not after 9 months, but after a number of years, where you will see about the university campus moving down here into Belfast, into regeneration of this whole area, of moving beyond the boundaries, where you will have a purpose-built, state-of-the-art university for all the students who come locally, nationally and internationally here. And that is Alistair's aim and object and his baby. And it's something that has been acknowledged and publicly acknowledged, and very publicly acknowledged last year when Her Majesty the Queen very appropriately awarded Alistair a very high honour in the birthday on the New Year's honours list. And I think that Alistair has moved beyond the concept of what a university is all about. I thought of Conor's topic tonight, citizenship and empowerment, and that summed up what a university is all about. And as I looked at the logo of the University of Ulster, I couldn't think of anyone better than a great hero of mine, John Henry Newman, that wonderful Englishman, that Oxford Don, who established the Oxford Oratory, Brompton Oratory, the Birmingham Oratory, and who had that vision of what a university is all about, producing solid citizens. And that we don't need this wonderful Department of Education guideline with regard to should we teach citizenship. Citizenship is what John Henry Newman said 100 years ago. ordinary people relating to each other in the terms that Conor has spoken about this evening. And secondly, empowerment, and that wonderful empowerment that Conor quoted at the end with Nelson Mandela, who after 27 years of unjust detention walked out of his state prison and in front of the cameras of the world said, "Education is your liberation." So to Alistair, for what you are doing with people who stand across the road from this university and who were frightened and would be frightened to cross the doors of this university or cross the hallowed halls of Queen's, that they will be made, as Alistair works very strongly at the moment, to be made solid citizens, to be empowered, and that education, nothing other than education, liberates the mind from the narrow-minded visions of some people who would drag us down, as distinct from liberating us, as Conor has been liberated for all to see tonight. So to you, Alistair, thank you for doing that. And to Conor, who has given us a very interesting talk this evening. I had the great privilege to work alongside Conor on a daily basis as a solicitor in court, as someone who was one of my very distinguished pupils at the Legal Institute when I taught him. Always available, always enthusiastic, and never came into a lecture that I was doing or anything like that, other than to learn. Never came in late, because they all knew that if they did, they were bucked out. There was no way they were coming in. If they were going to yap about student fees, if they were going to yap about the contents of courses, they would be in and studying from 2 o'clock to 3:30, not staggering in from the Egg, the Bot, the Wellington Park, forever, what other common ale houses they wanted to be at. And if they did go to a common ale house, and I remember one day as an executive member of the Total Abstinence Society, they were all in the Bot then and left about 2 in the lecture theatre. The 2, along with me, conducted the lecture in the Bot, and I can assure you they got a real gump when they saw that happening. But Conor, thank you for what you have done. Thank you for going out. And as we all know at the present stage, there is a season for everything. And I know that Conor has decided that after a very distinguished period in practice with Joe Rice, a very good friend of mine, that Conor has now decided to go out to diversify into other areas. And I think that what one can say is, the book of Ecclesiastes tells us, it's time for everything, a time to laugh, a time to cry, a time to work, a time to go off and do other things, a time to be a solicitor, and a time to move, and I think very rightly, to move into other areas. 20, as Conor, when he was discussing it with me, I said 20 years from now, tempus fugit memento mori, we will all regret the things that we didn't do, not the things that we have done. So to you, Conor, thank you for your inspiring words this evening. Thank you for the ambassadorial role that you have fulfilled as being a citizen of the world. Not any narrow-minded, blinkered vision of whether you are Irish, English, European, or whatever. I think one of the great friends of mine, Timothy Radcliffe, the charge of Blackfriars in Oxford, said to me recently, one has to be a citizen of the world. Conor is indeed a citizen of the world, and I think that there's a great film that I thoroughly enjoy, especially when I've got the flu and you have to be grounded at home and just want to watch a simple film, An Officer and a Gentleman. And I think that we have in Conor Houston an officer of the Supreme Court of Judicature of Northern Ireland, an officer of the Supreme Court of Judicature of the Republic of Ireland, and someone with whom I have had a great personal and professional working relationship with, an officer and a gentleman, as we've seen by him this evening. And if you are an officer, and if it can be said that you are an officer and a gentleman, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think you can say anything more about Conor Houston than that. Thank you.
Thank indeed. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, could I now ask you to join Conor and his family for some refreshments, and Alison will point the way to those. So thank you very much indeed.